Happy New Year, proppers. Welcome back to the shop. We'll be starting off 2023 with another very exciting project. I'll be creating my version of the teleportation pods from the movie The Fly, starring Jeff Goldblum. I wanted to create a large egg shape for the shell of the pod. I used gray tape to create a template, utilizing the outside of a vase that was close to the size and shape that I wanted. After cutting and separating the individual pieces of the template, I utilized some 6mm EVA foam to construct 4 different elements. To get a head start on the project, I prefabbed some curvature on some leftover pieces of foam before cutting out the templates. After all the pieces were cut out, they were attached together with contact cement. I then taped down the completed structure to the outside of the vase to help form and keep the shape and structure. I then flattened out the bottoms with my bandsaw to create a stable base. I followed the same procedure for the second element. I lined the inside of each section with strips of 6mm foam to lock in the curvature. Contact cement was used to attach the strips, using my heat gun to speed up the drying process. Straps were attached to each element to provide a mounting surface for the back section of the pods. And notches were cut at the top to create curvature. I made a paper template to cut a preliminary piece for the back of the pod, then I trimmed it down to its proper size. Being careful to keep the proper curvature, I attached it to the back straps with contact cement. I then trimmed and closed the top section of the pod. With both pods completed, I sealed all the seams with foam clay and sanded them smooth with my rotary tool. After cleaning off all the residue, I gave them a base coat of high-performance spray paint. I created a couple of dozen base fins from 6mm EVA foam and attached them to the bottom of the pods. Once again, I found something in my drawer of misfit parts that I could use for the top of the pots. I do realize that at this point, the pot is starting to look like a big misshapen silver eggplant, but trust me, it'll all work out in the end. I used some 1/4-inch ice maker hose to create the ridge fins for the pots. With the ridges of the pots completed, I proceeded to start putting in the pipe portholes. For that, I'll be using pieces of 1-inch PVC piping. I used 1.25 inch fastener bit to drill through the pod to accommodate the piping. And sealed them in place with hot glue. I then created the doors out of 2 layers of cardboard and marked out the size and position of the opening cutouts. I cut out windows in both layers of cardboard, then sandwich in a thin layer of plexiglass film. A bend will have to be made in the center of the door to accommodate the curvature of the pod. The bandsaw creates very neat and precise cuts in the thin plexiglass. I use my heat gun to soften up the plexiglass before making the bed. The opening cut into the pod is a 1/2 inch smaller than the door around the entire perimeter. The protective film on the plexiglass is trimmed a 1/4 inch around the entire perimeter to make a better surface to glue it to the cardboard door frame. I replaced the cardboard cutouts to the door to protect the plexiglass during painting, and then made further adjustments for the curvature. I went back to my pile of misfit pieces to create the hinge solution for the doors. I gave the doors a quick coat of high-performance black paint, then marked out the position for the hinges. The plastic hinge pieces were glued between the layers of the cardboard door and bolted onto the pod. I placed a strip of 4mm EVA foam along the hinge line to extend the door out for easier opening. The center of the foam strip had to be cut out to keep it from interfering with the operation of the door. Pilot holes were drilled to accommodate the hinge bolts. I then completed the final assembly of the hatch door. To add detail to the pod and the hatches, I cut small strips of 1/4-inch ice maker tube. I inserted sections of Romex wire inside of them so I could bend them to my will, and then sealed them in with some hot glue. The pieces were attached to the hatches and the pods with hot glue. To add a magnetic catch to the hatch, I inserted a button magnet to the first layer of EVA foam on the hatch and the inside of the door. I did a quick sanding of some of the excess hot glue with my Dremel rotary tool, then added a few small details with some EVA foam cutouts. With all the externals of the pods completed, I give it a bronze spray coating. Time to get started on the electronics. I use an outside electrical switch box to house the battery switch box. This is just to get a more industrial look. After trimming the opening for an exact fit, I glue in the battery box. To start running the wiring, I remove several of the electrical box knockouts. For that industrial look and feel, I'll be covering all the wiring with this flexible corrugated plastic tubing. I'll be installing 1/4-inch plexiglass inside the porthole openings. After adding a few more exterior painting features, I attach all the wiring. There'll be 2 separate electrical lines coming off of the battery box to light the portholes, as well as a separate electrical line going from pod to pod for the internal LED lighting. I'll be using this 4-strip headlights kit for the internal lighting. It's available on Amazon for a reasonable price. I'll leave a link in the description. After testing the porthole lights, I glued them into place. Next step is to install the internal LED strips. There'll be 2 LED strips in each pod, so I'll be using this 3-way splitter that'll supply the 2 strips in one pod and then continue on to the second. I'll be installing the receiver for the remote inside the electrical control box so that all the wires will emanate from the same spot. After placing the wire inside the corrugated plastic sheath, I insert the wire into the pods and secure them in place at the bottom of the pods with pod glue. After installing the splitters in each pod, I attach the LED strips. A small piece of gray tape is attached to each connector to make sure that they are not inadvertently pulled apart. Then the plastic sheaves are placed over the wire and glued into the pods. The strips and the connectors must be properly orientated. The orientation is identified by small arrow markings on each piece. The lights are thoroughly tested before removing the protective backing from the adhesive strips and attaching them to the inside of the pods. But before attaching the strips, all the inside wiring must be securely taped down to the bottom and sides of the pods. You have to be very careful not to put any undue tension on the wires that may make them separate later. I cut small pieces of 4mm EVA foam to cover the wires on the bottom of the pod. Black acrylic paint is used to camouflage all of the light sections of the inside of the pods. With the pods completed, I painted all of the wiring cover bright silver and mounted the entire project on a platform. And of course, this job would not be completed without Dr. Ian Malcolm himself. And that's the end of this project. I want to wish you all a very healthy, happy, and prosperous new year. And I hope that you'll continue to support my channel. Please press that like button, like, share, comment, and definitely subscribe. I'd appreciate it. Until next time.